drop in the chat the link to today's session. You can also see the bit.ly on the screen, or you can scan the QR code. Either way. And today I'm excited. We're going to talk about a topic that a lot of people in feedback have brought up. We're going to talk about over-reliance and environmental impact today a little bit. And so my name's Ashley McCormick. I'm the director of personalized and digital learning for the district, and I have an amazing team of women, one of which is not going to be with us today. Sarah had to take some time off today. And so she is not with us, but the other two members of our team are. And so I'll let them unmute and say hey to you all. Shannon, you want to go first?
Yep, I am Shannon Eshelman, and I am one of the personalized and digital learning coaches. I kind of focus more on the elementary side, although Sandy and I tag team to do everything. My other partner is muted, but she is in the same room with me behind me. So this is Sandy Holt, and she does secondary. And again, we partner to try to handle it all, and we're here to help today.
Awesome. Shannon will be my partner in crime today. She'll help me do the presentation as we go through. I want to start off easy question. Thumbs up, thumbs down in the chat, or either you can use the reaction button, yes, no. If I asked you if you've seen this movie or could identify the character, would you be able to do that? Let's see how many of you have had kids at home. So thumbs up, thumbs down, yes, no in the chat. I see several thumbs up reactions happening on my screen. I have one in the chat.
It's funny you say kids, because I rewatched it this weekend, and my husband walked through the room when I was and sat down and goes, "Oh, greatest movie ever." And he sat and watched the whole thing with me.
Yeah. So for me, I love that movie, and there's a number of reasons why I love the movie. I remember the first time I watched it, it was very, at first I was like, dude, where is this going? But it was really good. And so if you've not seen the movie before, WALL-E is about humans basically becoming over-reliant on technology. So some of you may be like, that's a little too on the nose for today. But in the movie, they become so over-reliant on technology that they lose their ability to walk. And I would argue what makes them a human, that unique human spark, that ability to lead and create. But there is a turning point in the movie, if you've seen it. And it's not necessarily about a new piece of technology that's created or a software update. It's a single green seedling, and it took human grit and curiosity to bring back the world back to life, because it was a desolate place because of this over reliance on technology, and we basically polluted the planet to the point we couldn't live on it anymore. And so, but the movie does leave, I know that sounds really depressing, but it does leave off on a positive note. And it really got, as we were talking about this idea of over-reliance, it really was the grit and determination of a few people that really helped to turn things around. And so I want us to take just a minute, and I want you to think about that. And so I'll put the link in the chat. You can also scan the QR code or go to menti.com and put in that code. Either way will get you to the question. But I want you to think about it. If an AI model used 100% of the world's energy, right, and we had a WALL-E situation, what is the one human superpower that AI really could never truly replicate? So I want you to take a minute, think about that. I'll give you a couple minutes to get in. I'll put the link in the chat again for anyone who's come in late. Or again, you can scan the QR code. But what is one human superpower AI cannot replicate? So let's see some of these as they come in. Nice. Change body language. Emotion, love. So I'll share some of these with you so that you can see what others are saying. So it's just a word cloud. So the more someone says a word or a phrase, the
Sure.
larger it gets. And so we have about 16 of us. Some of our inconsistency. Some of these made me laugh. Y'all are great. Body
Birth is
language,
fabulous.
true emotion, love, guilt, balding. Yes.
Balding, balding.
Thanks.
I love this group of people.
I know. Emotion, empathy, soul, ignorance, which we talked about deep fakes and hallucinations. So sometimes AI doesn't always get it right. But we know there are things that are unique to the human experience, right? And we know we oftentimes hear things like creativity, critical thinking. I love empathy, absolutely, which is we sit in PD all the time where they talk about, they caution us against younger students using AI for that very reason. They don't want them to see that as a person, a real person on the other end of the line, because AI doesn't have the capacity for true empathy. And so, as we talk today about some of those superhuman skills, some of the things that we possess and we don't want to see lost in this era of AI. We'll come back to that as we go through. And so today does focus on over reliance. That has come up again and again as we've talked to educators, even as we've read articles. Shannon shared a really great article earlier this week about an individual's reflection on their over reliance or over dependence on AI. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that and how we may put some guardrails in place. And then something that we hear oftentimes, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of this today, the environmental impact. And those two things are linked, right? The more that we use AI, generative AI, and really it comes down to what you do with generative AI, the bigger environmental impact that you can have. And so those are kind of the two topics we're going to dive in today. We are going to have lots of interactivity, just like any other session you've been a part of. This session isn't going to focus on a specific tool. However, it is about building awareness and capacity so that we can all make better informed decisions as we continue to live in a world with AI. And so our learning intentions for today is we're going to be able to critically evaluate the trade-offs of generative AI by examining the risk of cognitive over-reliance and the scale of its environmental footprint, so that we become intentional and ethical users of generative AI. By the end of this, we hope that you can walk away and communicate how the use of AI can lead to cognitive laziness or cognitive dependency, articulate the relationship between large-scale AI model usage and global resource consumption so that we can make better choices, and then apply a set of responsible use questions to help determine when a task is better suited for human effort versus AI. And so kind of three big goals: communicate, articulate, and apply as we kind of think through our session today. And so as we were preparing for this session, it's this push and pull, right? We know that there are costs of using AI, but what we also recognize is that AI is here, the genie is out of the bottle. And if we want students to be future ready, a part of that is for them to understand how they apply those durable skills that we're focusing on in the era of AI. Critical thinking is more important than ever. But how do we also work and collaborate with others in an era of AI? How do we communicate and be transparent about our use of AI? Personal responsibility, which we're going to talk about today a little bit when we talk about over reliance. So, how do we take these durable skills and think through the lens of AI literacy and ensure that our students are future ready? Because if you've seen any of the research, this is an infographic that I created using the 2025 Future of Jobs report by the World Economic Forum. And if you look at what this report says specifically, it talks about what skills are on the rise and are going to be much needed by the year 2030. And if you look at that, AI and big data are the number one fastest growing skills that employers are looking for, which like that is the craziest thing in the world to me. But at the same time, they talk about even current employees are going to need reskilling and upskilling to exist in this world of AI. The report itself cites about 60% of employees are going to need upskilling to exist and to stay relevant in the world of AI. But what gives me hope is that there are still very human-centric skills that are critical and that employers talk about as being critical um, in the future of jobs in our economic. Creative thinking and resiliency are some of the biggest. But what you'll also notice is that some of these more routine tasks or the automation are the skills that we see in decline, which I think you'll find as we go through and have our conversation today, you'll kind of recognize as we go through. I nerd out. People that know me know that I'm a nerd. And so I say, short of a Skynet issue, short of the Terminator showing up, AI is here and it's here to stay. And so, how do we help students become AI literate? How do we help them become ethical users, responsible users of AI? And we've used this graphic before. I've used it a ton in professional development because it kind of symbolizes this whole idea of our portrait of a graduate, this future ready work as our North Star. It's our goal to make sure our students are future ready. And that's a journey. It involves educators discovering what strategies work best, what pedagogies work best, to help students become future ready. And then it's a journey for students to acquire those durable skills. And as I said before, an important part of this is building AI literacy, helping ourselves and our students become an AI literacy. But what I really want us to think about and be intentional about is it is critical for us as adults with our own children, with the students we're in front of, with our own use, to have guidelines in place that act as guardrails that help us be ethical and responsible users. And we have to implement processes and procedures that help safeguard us, our students, our own children, in this world of AI. And I think it's really important, and I promise I'm going to stop talking soon. I know you're like, man, they don't normally talk this much. I promise I'm getting ready to stop talking and give you a moment to process. But is anybody else a nerd about brain research and brain science and the way that your brain works and the way that you learn? Like, is it just me? Because I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to brain research. Yes, I've got one in the chat. Sweet. And I've got some people. Yes, you are my people. I love that. So guardrails become really important when we think about younger students, especially students under the age of 25. So all our pre-K 12 students fall in that range. And so if you have your own children in that range, it is really critical because their brains are still developing. They are not fully developed. And so when we talk about this idea of cognitive laziness or this over-reliance, their brains are hardwired for that. So if you are familiar at all with brain research and brain science, the amygdala, which is the feeling center, it is in control. it is front and center at this point in time in their lives. And that area of the brain seeks immediate gratification, quick rewards. It's releasing dopamine when it gets those quick rewards. I've talked all day today and I'm struggling. And so that it's in the driver's seat. The part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, however, which is kind of that area of the brain that pumps the brakes, handles critical thinking, planning, impulse control, all of those things. It's kind of under construction. And it's not fully developed until the mid 20s. So that's why I said 25. So when we think about that and we introduce a tool like generative AI that offers this instant reward, this instant gratification, oh man, I'm going to put in this prompt and it's going to create the whole thing for me, right? The fast answer, that amygdala is in the driver's seat. It is taking over the wheel before the project manager, the prefrontal cortex can even kind of get the keys out of the pocket. And so when we think about that fact that our students' brains are really wired for these quick rewards and this easy answer, and that prefrontal cortex is not fully developed yet, it becomes really, really important for educators and parents to be AI literate and to really put those guardrails in place and begin evaluating how we use AI so that our students still are developing those critical thinking skills, creativity, all of those human superpowers that we want to see. And so, as promised, I'm going to be quiet. That was a lot of talking. My throat's even scratchy. Sorry, guys. Um, we want to give you a minute to kind of interact and think about this. And so there was an article Shannon actually shared it with me. It's one she came across in some of her work around AI. And so I thought it was great. It was simple, to the point. Um, and so I want to share it with you. I'll put the link to the article, or Shannon, if you'll drop the link to the article in the chat so they can just click on it. But it talks about this era of AI and using AI and this idea of productive struggle. We know that we need kids to be in that zone of proximal development, right? Like productive struggle is critical and vital to learning. And so I want us to take just a couple minutes. We're going to give you about 10 minutes or so to read the article. And then after you read the article, to help you process, because if you're like me, I read it and I'm like, ah, but to help you process, we have a Padlet with a few questions to help you think about your own classroom and to process through some of this. And so when you're in here, after you read the article to help you process and you're inputting your answers, for each question, you can click the plus button and you can write your response there. Once you write a response and add it, you can also add comments or reactions to other people's responses. So you can kind of engage in some back and forth dialogue as well as you go through here. It's a quick read, pretty short. There are some hyperlinks to some research articles. So all of you that said you like to nerd out, you might go down a little bit of a rabbit hole. But we want to give you about 10 minutes to do that. If you have any questions, please let us know. But we're going to throw that link to the article in the chat first. And then I'll also put the direct link to the Padlet, or you can scan the QR code and use your phone. So I'm going to be quiet, I promise, and let you all get started. So lots of good thoughts being shared in the Padlet. Um, don't forget you can interact with other people, ask how they might do certain things. Absolutely, lots of good ideas. We have about 5 more minutes, and then we'll come back together and kind of debrief. We have less than 2 minutes. So if you haven't had a chance to add your thoughts to the Padlet, go ahead and do that. We have a little less than 2 minutes left to go. Lots of good ideas and lots of them that really, when I was reading, that really resonate with like some of the brain research. So what you're seeing in classrooms, absolutely. Like, and so how do we put guardrails in place to help kids from taking that easy way out? Absolutely. That's a That's 10 minutes by my timer. I think I saw maybe one or two people wrapping up in the Padlet. But what was your big aha, or what was an idea that you saw in the Padlet, something to take away? Um, like, what was your big takeaway? You can unmute or you can absolutely put it in the chat. Lots of you had some really good ideas and thoughts. Productive struggle versus unproductive struggle, and where do we really structure that and begin to use some of those tools in the classroom? Absolutely. So, Sarah, we're going to talk about some resources and how you begin to guide students in that use, but there were lots of ideas in the Padlet too. So, like for me, if I was doing an assignment, and I modeled this in a previous PD that we did, I would have students write some of their original thoughts on paper. I know, technology department, but like, and I know I talk a lot about instructional technology, but I'm going to have them write their original thoughts first, either in an outline. Maybe I don't have them write their whole paper first, but then as they go in and type, I have a very structured environment, like in magic school and things like that, where then, and I have time set aside that they use tools to get feedback. I love tools like Magic School, and Shannon can speak to that, School AI and things like that, because I have a running record of how students are engaging with school with those technology tools. And I know that's while they're with me, I can't necessarily control exactly what they do when they're not with me, but I always want to model best practice for them. We also have some tools and resources I'm going to share in just a moment, that may help too in the classroom setting.
And in on Thursday, we have another PD session coming
Yeah,
up,
I was
which
going
is
to
on
say,
academic integrity, Fall Street academic integrity, in which we will talk about some of this too. Um, Sarah, I'm going to drop the article that Ashley mentioned that
yes,
we came across. The guy is actually like the head of educational something another in a university in Sydney, Australia, over artificial intelligence. And he basically did a 30-day break, kind of like the No Shave November, but it was a No AI December, which opened his eyes to how it is easy to contribute to cognitive laziness, even in ourselves.
yeah.
And some of what he talks about that he did are the types of things that we would do and put in place in a classroom to make sure that we're using those guardrails. So that might also be another resource for you. So I dropped that article in the chat.
And to Mark's point, I'm absolutely an advocate of blended learning. So kids doing
Yes.
things on like paper pencil, absolutely. And like when you talk about graphic organizers, thinking maps, some of those things, the research actually shows to build metacognition, they need to write that. So they're engaging different
Absolutely.
parts of their brain. And so some of those pieces, really thinking about how I structure an assignment so I have some of their original thoughts before I give them the opportunity. And then some of it, I think, comes down to modeling as well. We read an article, Shannon, I think it's in that notebook, or was it Ashley? We've been to a lot of PD,
We
but
have.
there was an article that talked, and it was from
Oh,
a
about
student.
the writing part of it?
Well, it was about the student perspective. And one of the biggest frustrations from students is the fact that as adults, we are often not transparent in our use of AI, and then students
Oh,
get
yeah.
called out when they're not transparent.
Yeah.
And even as I was going back in this slide deck, I went back and I was like, Shannon, I didn't cite my infographics. Like
I,
I was like,
I
we
know. I
better do
know.
that if we're going to
I,
talk about modeling best practice.
and I'm trying to like keep that healthy boundary between work and home life. And when I took spring break off, because I had to take spring break off because we couldn't work it, there's things I need to go back and cite. And I know I do, y'all, and I will, because we've got to model it for our kids, but out of the context of time,
Yeah.
there's a disclaimer I need to put in there.
But it's, I think there's lots of different ways that you can put some. And so one of the things is really, as us as adults, being transparent in the way that we use it and critically evaluating how that we're being critical evaluators of the way in which we use AI and how we talk to students about that. And so one of the things, DPI is great and has given us lots of great resources. And we have linked all of the icons that you see on your page on slide 16 are all links. And so one of the things is we read an article, Shannon, what was it, where kids feel almost like guilt because AI is like this hidden secret, like nobody wants to talk about it in the classroom.
Yep. And the only
so
time it is talked about is you're cheating because you're using AI.
Yeah.
And
And
it
so
really makes, and some kids are even dumbing down their writing so it won't sound like AI. Like it's
yeah, so
such an injustice to kids.
there are so many really interesting articles and research articles, and like there's a lot out there and we're trying to curate all of it. But one of the things is just to be transparent on what they can use things for. So if you're going to allow AI use, really, if you want kids to engage in productive struggle, really being explicit about what they are allowed and what they aren't allowed to use AI for. And so there are different examples from DPI, from us, and other districts. Here's one from a school district that talks about a poster that can be used to facilitate different conversations. We have one as well that let me see if it'll click in the right place, and it's not. It's going to drive me crazy. But we have created our own kind of, oh, it's messed up. We've created our own. DPI has some that, and that's where ours came from originally, is from DPI. This continuum of AI use. And what I do like about theirs is that we can absolutely go in and we can, they've given us the opportunity to brand it and do all these different things with it, but they have a educator version and they have here it is, and they have a student version, which I really, really like. And we've taken this and kind of branded it for ourselves, if it'll come up. But in here are different resources that you can see that teachers can use to have some of those conversations with students. And so you'll see here, this is something you could take, print, put in your classroom. If I was in the classroom, I might print and laminate it so it doesn't get destroyed when my middle schoolers put their like fingers all over it. And I might have a paper clip to say, hey, today's assignment is AI free. We're not using any generative AI on this particular assignment. But tomorrow when you come in, we might use it in the brainstorming process. And what I like about this one is that it tells me how I have to be transparent and disclose my use of AI, what my citations need to look like, which I think is critical for our students. Absolutely. There was also an example, and I loved this one. I'm a doom scroller on Instagram, like full transparency. I loved this. A teacher shared this on Instagram, and it was her, go away. It was her AI agreement. They made a class agreement about AI, and like what system they were going to use, PII, all of those kind of things, which I absolutely loved. And so I think using some of those things in the classroom to be very explicit about what's allowed and what's not allowed and why, I think that's oftentimes we forget that students are humans too. And sometimes they just want to know why. Why can't I use it to do this? Like my kid, she's okay if she knows why, but like sometimes she gets really in her feelings if she feels like something's being done to her just because. And so explaining to them why we're not using it at that point. But I think some of those are valuable guardrails you can put in place too, because then it does become a bigger conversation when they move outside of those bounds. So we're going to switch. Yep. Let me stop sharing. We're going to switch gears.
Just took control. Ashley, you can just keep sharing. I just took control.
Oh, I'm going to give it.
So we're going to try it and see if it works. And if not, I'll take over. So we're going to transition a little bit into not thinking quite as much about what we're doing or the cost to our intelligence in terms of our own brains to thinking about what the cost is for the earth and the environment when we go to use AI. And so for this, I've created something for you guys to do. You can choose which hat you want to wear, whether you want to be an educator and work up here on the educators AI Earth Budget Challenge, or whether you want to be a student, wear the student hat and do it through the student view. Both activities take you through the same types of things, but basically what you're going to do is decide in a week's time what types of things you might use AI to help do. And this could be lesson planning, that kind of thing. I'm going to show you what one looks like. So I'm going to click on it and see if it takes Ashley to it. And it does. Yay. So this is the educators. You have a bar up here at the top, and basically, whether you're a student or an educator, you're going to try to spend 100 planet points, because every use of AI has an environmental impact. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're using AI, you are impacting the environment in some way. But depending on what you're doing, it's a different level of impact. So you look through, you decide what you want to do. Some of you, it'll say double click to interact. So I'm going to double click on it. And let's say that I want to create an AI generated slide deck, and I want to create 2 of these. I can click it twice in here, and you can see my budget's being used at the top. Scroll through, see what you want to use it for. Try to use 100 points. It will let you go under budget or over budget, but when you're finished, you're going to calculate your footprint. And that's going to take you to a page to show you basically how you're impacting the environment by using it. It's going to break it down and give you specifics, and then it's going to ask you to reflect. And so once you put in the reflection, you do not need to put in a name. It's not collecting your name. You save and share, and it's sending it to me so that I can have a sheet so that I can kind of show you guys the reflections, but you won't know who put them in. Do you have questions about what it is that you're going to do? And Ashley, I don't know if I can get back. Yeah, I can. I've just got to find. Is your Canva in your browser? Yes, here it is. So I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes. Hopefully that's enough time for you guys to do this activity. If you finish before that 5 minutes is up, if you would let me know so that I can have you guys stop earlier. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to work on it. So click on the AI challenge, the AI budget challenge, and I'll give you guys 5 minutes to work on it.
Hey, Shannon, you're still muted. You're good.
All right, sorry about that. All right, so we did have some different things coming in terms of what people were seeing. And again, the whole point of this is to see what your impact is and to help students see what their impact is. These are links that you can use with your students. You won't have access to the data sheets because it's something I created, but you could certainly have your kids respond, like type out the response and respond in a Google form or something like that if you wanted to do an activity like this with your students to help them see the environmental impact. So one quote that I took from the article from the professor from Sydney was that through his entire process of what he realized when he took his month-long break from AI was that he realized he wanted to make sure that AI serves as a scaffold for innovation, enhancing rather than replacing intellectual rigor. And I think for all of us, whether our concerns are academic integrity or how students are using AI or how it's impacting the environment. The bottom line is they do need to learn AI literacy. They need to learn about using AI, but all of us want them to keep that intellectual rigor. So it's just a good takeaway I had from him as it's something that we all want to do. So why are we so concerned with this in North Carolina with the environmental impacts? Well, North Carolina is having a data center boom. Why North Carolina? When you take a look at this map, you can see some of the bigger center hubs. The green on the map is indicating an operating data center. The orange is proposed and planned developments. We have a great strategic inter, infrastructure here in North Carolina. We have a good grid for our power grid, and we're getting lots of expanding fiber connectivity that can support it. We have a good proximity to talent. You've got the Research Triangle Park. You also now have a great center growing in the Triad as well, with our innovation quarter. We've got lots of people who can do the work that we are creating by these data centers. And it's a lower cost of entry. Land is cheaper in North Carolina than it is in places such as Virginia, where you would think about, like Northern Virginia, where you would think about these data centers being. What's driving the AI era? Well, we've got lots of generative AI growth. We've just had agentic AI go through the roof where it's like longer sustained working AI. You've got the cloud growing where you need more and more data stored. When people think of the cloud, they think of some cloud up in the sky, when in reality is it's some huge building somewhere with lots of processors in it that's keeping all that data. We're basically doubling the power demand in North Carolina. It's projected to double between now and 2035. And we've got these big companies like Amazon and Microsoft coming here, putting billions of dollars in to build up the infrastructure that we have because of these other reasons. When you look at the impact or the trade-offs of these data centers, you've got to consider the resource consumption versus sustainability. These hypercenters use millions of gallons of water daily to cool these centers. That puts a strain on local resources. It could use up to 25% or more of local resources just to cool these centers. It's going to cause your energy to go up in terms of what residents are paying for it. The companies put all this money in, but the bottom line is it gets passed along to the consumer of the normal household energy to pay for these costs. And you got to think about the land and the heritage that's lost. We'll talk a little bit more about this when we talk about the one that's in our backyard, but it can impact the environment in terms of noise level, light level, and then things like your indigenous heritage sites that might be, or historic sites that might be bulldozed over and have a big building put on top of them. You often hear about how it's going to bring all these local jobs. And initially, it does bring a huge amount in terms of jobs in an area for construction, but that usually only lasts 18 to 24 months. typically after that time, you start getting local losses where jobs are going to be taken up and ousted because of it. In Stokes County, we just recently have had, I say we because I grew up in Stokes County, but it's our backyard, y'all. They recently passed a proposal the city council did for building a data center in Stokes County. It is a huge debate. There are pros for why, supporters for why they want to build it. There are concerns as to why they don't want it built. Why do you want to build it? You've got huge amounts of tax revenue that are going to roll in. They say it's going to bring some regional economic growth. Typically, where you have these centers, you have other businesses come in. It modernizes the power grid and keeps things working well with that. However, on the con side, you've got noise levels that they say like are equivalent to a vacuum cleaner running. Well, you put that out in a rural part of a county like Stokes County, vacuum cleaners make a lot of noise. That's going to bother your nature outside and the people who live there. You've got threats to sacred heritage sites. If any of you have ever heard of Saratown Mountain or been to Saratown Mountain, ever gone to South Stokes High School where their mascot is, we want to get into that debate, the Saras. It's from a local tribe that's there, that originated and lived in that area. And they have a burial ground there that's going to be bulldozed over and they're going to build the site on top of it. It also is on top of a historic plantation for one of the largest historic sites in Stokes County. And you've got high resource consumption. The facility might use up to 100,000 gallons of water daily for the cooling system from the Dan River. Your electric
So,
bills are going to go up. Go ahead.
so for me, this is really personal. I
Yep.
live in Stokes County, and so we've talked a whole lot about our energy bills. Every single one of us, I feel like, could attest to the fact that energy costs have gone through the roof, and this would expand, like that would completely expound on that. But also, my husband and I are big, like we love to kayak. He's a big fisherman, so we spend quite a bit of time on the Dan River. And so this is, please don't mention the data center if you ever see us out in public with my husband, because he gets very heated and is very opinionated when it comes to this being built in essentially right around the corner from our house. So yeah, it is a very lived experience for me right now, how AI impacts everyday life and these data centers that power the generative AI.
And in true fashion, we knew we were going to run out of time today. We didn't know how close we were going to run out of time. But this link is to a notebook LM that I've done in my personal account so that it is public for you all. Please explore this on your own time. If you're not familiar with Notebook LM, all you do is open this up. These are all the sources over here that I've put in here. They're all recent sources about this Stokes County data center. This summarizes the entire notebook, but you can come in here and ask questions,
Hold on,
such
Shannon, it's
as,
not showing on your screen. It's still
oh,
showing the,
well, that doesn't help. Let me
yeah,
go over here.
yeah. You'll have to pull it up. Sorry.
It's my Teams. Thank you for letting me know.
You're good.
Stop sharing. Let me share again so I can share my whole screen. Can you see it now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay.
Mhm.
So these are all the sources that are in this notebook. This is a summary of the notebook in general. These are questions it suggests you can ask, but there you can ask anything you want to. You could say, what is the issue being debated? And it's going to summarize the issue for you. You can ask specific questions. I've got a note over here on the right that you can click on that tells you some things to look at for economic and fiscal impact, to look at for cultural and heritage land use, to look at for transparency and governance. And with Notebook LM, if you're not familiar with it, this will only draw off of the sources that are in this notebook. It doesn't go out to the web. It doesn't go anywhere else. So it's like a closed notebook that you can look in to get information from. So that's in our presentation for you guys to have access to. Click to explore that. And the main thing we want you guys to remember, not main thing, one of the main things is to remember that we do always evaluate what we're doing with AI, but in this term, with what we're talking about evaluating how we use generative AI, critically evaluate it. Is it productive or unproductive struggle? If you are replacing productive struggle by using AI, you're taking the learning out of it. You don't want to take the learning out of activities for you or for your students. Are you using it like a Socratic partner, or is it the Oracle just giving you all the answers? If it's just providing the answers, if you can't do it with a Google search, you probably should be doing it on your own. If the tool is removed, can you summarize what you just did? If you can't summarize it, then you're not internalizing the information, and that's a red flag that you might not need to be using AI. You need to look at doing the activity differently. So we hope that you can now communicate how AI can lead to cognitive laziness, that you can articulate these large AI models and data centers and how they how they use resources and consume them within our world, and how that impacts us and the impact we have on that, and that you can apply some of those questions to be a more responsible user and help to teach your students to be more responsible users. We do have 2 more sessions coming up. This one is on Thursday, is on fostering academic integrity. Then on Tuesday, April 21st, it's the 6th one in this session, which is partnering with AI for deeper learning. And as always, we will stay around to answer any questions or have any more discussion you guys want to have. But we realize that your time is precious, and we have gone over by 2 minutes, but I'm being quiet now.